Shabbat Shalom. When my brother and I were kids, we looked forward every year, as did a lot of our peers, to what was then the annual and not on demand broadcasting of the Ten Commandments. That great epic done in classic Hollywood style that, with some liberties, portrays Moses' life, the life of the Israelites in bondage, the coming of the plagues, and the exodus from Egypt. And in that version, which I imagine you all know quite well, it's a long movie, made even longer in those days by incredible numbers of commercial breaks. But there were some moments that really stayed with us. One was the moment later in the movie where Moses comes down from the mountain and his face has changed, and the people's dramatic reaction to his appearance, his suddenly very white hair, his shining face. My brother loved to reenact that scene. But one of the other moments that I'm sorry to admit used to make us as young children laugh a little bit was the moment where Pharaoh finally lets the people go, and it's out of order a little bit in the story, but it clearly struck the script writers. And Moses, in the person of Charlton Heston, walks stentorially off the screen, kind of receding into the background. And as he goes, he's talking. And he says, "Yes, we will go. We will go with our old and with our young. We will go with our sons and with our daughters. We will go with our flocks and with our folds." And he sort of recedes into the background, reciting this litany of all of those man and beast that will go into the Exodus and into the wilderness. And when Spencer and I were quite young, I think we could be excused for finding that incredibly melodramatic recitation of the list of those who would go into the wilderness a little bit humorous, because it was done in such a stylized way and so serious, and we were young. But with a little bit of maturity, I have come to realize, and with the help of some extraordinary teachers, Rabbi Yosef Kineski, Rabbi Brad Artson, Rabbi Mordechai Finley, what a truly extraordinary recitation that list really is. Last week, we attended the baby naming of what will soon be a family by marriage, tiny baby, whose name in English is Harper and in Hebrew, Chaya, named after her beloved grandmother Hilda, who was a dear friend of mine. So it was an occasion for waterworks. But Rabbi Kanevsky, who is the rabbi of B'nai David Judea, a marvelous community in the Pico Robertson area in Los Angeles, actually at the corner of Pico Robertson, so right in the heart, wonderful modern Orthodox community. And Rabbi Kanevsky is a groundbreaking and pioneering and very brave rabbi. I love him dearly. He spoke about this coming week's Parsha. This was last Sunday. And the magic of naming a baby, and naming especially a daughter, in the days leading up to Moses' pronouncement that he and Aaron and the men, though given permission by Pharaoh briefly to leave on their own, that they would not leave without the children and without the animals. Moses says specifically, we don't know with what we are to worship God, meaning with what animals we will offer sacrifice, because that was the primary mode of worship in the day. But regardless, we will not go into the wilderness to create a relationship with the divine without our children and without our animals. And not only with our children, Moses says early in this parsha, and you may have picked it up, Exodus 10, verse 9, we will all go, young and old, we will go with our sons and daughters, our flocks and herds, for we must observe the Lord's festival. So this was not the script writers of the 1950s just putting extra words in the character of Moses's mouth to give Charlton Heston a few extra lines and a little bit more melodrama. That's actually a direct quote from our Torah portion. And it strikes such a chord in the hearts of those who are listening carefully to this section of the Torah. Rabbi Artson notes that Pharaoh and Moses are locked in a conflict between two opposing worldviews. Pharaoh stands at the pinnacle of a society that is organized in a strict hierarchy, a world in which everybody is assigned a place below someone else in the service of the vast aristocracy of the state. By contrast, Moses and the Torah mark the beginning of a society dedicated to limited government and the rule of law under God. And in this Torah reading, one more difference emerges, a difference that also sets the two worlds of values in radically opposing contexts. Moses insists on taking the entire people. Pharaoh makes an attempt to buy Moses' acquiescence to slavery, so he makes this counteroffer. The men may go out, but the women and children must remain behind. Pharaoh is a consummate politician. He's trying to compromise to reach an agreement, but on this matter, Moses will not compromise. Judaism was not to be the preserve of one caste, one sect, one gender. Over time, all people would be called upon to live according to the priestly values, to bring holiness into every aspect of our lives, an entire people of priests, not just the priestly caste. This was a kind of small d democratic system. The spirit of inclusion began at the very beginning in the heated arguments between Moses and Pharaoh. From the start, and we've not always lived up to it, but Moses was teaching that Judaism that cannot make room for all Jews is no Judaism at all. And across our board, we would do well and better to heed that message. With our young and with our old, with our sons and our daughters, our flocks and our herds, we will go. Now, my friends, we are sitting, of course, this week in the parsha that concludes the extraordinary, compelling, impossible to turn away from, and yet horrifying final plagues that strike Egypt. The plagues of locusts, darkness, and the slaying of the firstborn. This is a world in which animals and children play a central role, and it is enough to sear the soul. But the Torah is written in the language of genius. Animals and children do play a disproportionately starring role in the beginning of the Exodus. We begin with the story of unchecked fertility, at least in the eyes of Pharaoh, the bravery, the heroism of the midwives saving the Israelite children, Pharaoh's heinous degree to throw the baby boys of the Israelite slaves into the Nile, and the ultimate horrific slaying of the firstborn from the lowest Egyptian home to the highest. And that's even after the Torah says that the hearts of the Egyptians, from Pharaoh's courtiers to all of the regular Egyptians, had turned in awe toward Moses. But it was too late. The beasts and the children are center stage in this narrative. It's extraordinarily powerfully written, and it is absolutely not by accident. What do the animals and the children, without whom and without which Moses said, "We will not go forth as a people," what do they have to teach us? What is the Torah saying? It is reminding us that the animals and the children who have no voice in this great story of humanity on earth are to be remembered and cared for we cannot be a just society if we do not. From the files, as you all know who've been with us for a little bit, I do very often say God is mysterious. And so it was that just a few days ago, when pondering the coming week's Parsha and what I could possibly add to the great body of commentary and thoughts that have been put forth about these plagues and this journey, and Moses is saying, we will not go without our sons and our daughters and our flocks and our herds, I heard a song that came over my tiny, miraculous device. I will admit proudly that during these last 3 years of the pandemic, I have sought comfort in music and meditation and anything that could help get us through these difficult times. And I rediscovered the music of the Carpenters, that wonderful brother-sister team who was mostly known for their admittedly sentimental but beautiful love songs and celebrations of life. And poor Karen, who died so young with so much hope ahead of her. But a song that they wrote in the early 70s that I had not heard before, and I know so many of their songs up, down, and sideways, but this one was new, and I want to take these words to finish our time together this morning. They wrote a song based on the 1971 movie, Bless the Beasts and Children. It's not a movie I've seen, a story very much of its time about empowering young children who were sent to a camp. They had what we would now maybe call special needs of some sort, and they found empowerment by working together to save a herd of buffalo. But this was a song inspired by that movie. It is called Bless the Beasts and Children, and I doubt that the songwriters had a copy of Exodus in front of them, but anything is possible and miracles happen. They celebrate in this song children and animals, and even bring in a little bit of the plague of darkness. Can't be an accident. And so I'll read these words as we close today. Bless the beasts and the children, for in this world they have no voice, they have no choice. Bless the beasts and the children, for the world will never be the world they wish to see. Light their way when the darkness surrounds them. Give them love, let it shine all around them. Bless the beasts and the children. Give them shelter from the storm. Keep them safe. Keep them warm. Bless the beasts and the children. Give them shelter from the storm. Keep them safe. Keep them warm. Shabbat Shalom.